what do you love?
I love another clip by Devocates.
Council of Dads.
Hey, is there a Devo thing you think plays into this Council of Dads?
Maybe. Let's find out.
Let's find out.
Charles will let you know that I've created a monster. I've introduced my wife to
Me too.
Tamu. Yes, I know it's one of your favorite sites.
I like it.
Kind of enjoy some of myself too. And my wife started ordering, and she can't stop. She has a real problem. Her birthday is coming up, and she is going to throw a 70s disco party.
Oh,
and
no.
She began working on this a month ago.
It's a rabbit
hole. The
hole.
party is next month on the 27th, so 3 months of preparation. That's a lot of time to find things on Temu and buy them.
Oh, yeah.
And we have... It's ungodly amount of, I've never seen so many disco balls in all my life. Sparkly stuff, platform shoes, hair, mustaches, you name it. I mean, she is outfitting me, my son, my daughter, herself, of course, and I think half her friends. I swear it's crazy, but Tamu is her best friend. Then I introduced her to Ali Express. And that was a whole other piece because they have
He's
kind
a
of
crack
little
dealer.
different twist on, kind of what Tamu does, but it's a little different too.
It is.
Now she's eyeballing that. So, those sites are cheap. Shop like a billionaire, right, Charles?
That's right. You know what? The reason Phil is all disappointed is because that's where we got him from tonight.
No. I understand that. I am the Alibaba of podcasters. But I'm just going to point out real quick. It's Temu. I don't care what the Super Bowl ad said. I don't care that it's pronounced GIF. It is not. It's Temu. It is GIF. Get it right, Devakate. I know. You've been look, Devakate. I know you've been saying it this way for a while now. I'm gonna be your friend. Stop saying it that way. Nobody else here will set you straight and be honest with you. But Daddy Philip, I got you, boo.
My name is Joe Ard, and I support this message.
Jump.
Y'all are stupid. If we were, I don't know where Devo lives, but I think it's in a flyover state somewhere we just don't care about. I don't know. But if we were close enough to drive, Joe, how cool would that be? Just a surprise at the birthday party
for the disco party.
Yeah, we just surprise show up. Yeah, we show up in our
Party you weren't invited to?
I've got my camera, right, like on the shoulder camera, and we're gonna shove a microphone in Devo's face, like, we're the paparazzi.
You ring the doorbell and they're like, no vacancy. I'm sorry, buds. And you have to drive all the way back. Let me self-invite myself to a party. Oh, all right.
Always. So that does kind of play into the Council of Dads because Devo had a little bit of a failure there. And the idea that we had tonight to talk about is, what do we think about teaching our kids from our own failures? Because I know traditionally a lot of fathers will hide their own failures and because they don't want to share that guilt with their kid, or they're not good communicators or whatever else. And then the trope is that at 25 the kid's doing all this stuff and dad's like, yeah, I used to do that too, and the kid's like, what? I never knew. So what do you think about sharing your failures to educate your kid?
I don't know what you're talking about. I'm perfect.
Great. I can take this subject. As an adopted boy, I can talk to you all about failures and disappointments.
And learning from your dad?
To be honest with you, well, he won't return my call for some reason. I don't know. Here's the thing, man. I have a very strange relationship with my kid where I am dead ass honest with him. He'll I don't sugarcoat or hide anything from him. So talking about my failures and talking about, times that I've messed up and steps that I've made since then to kind of course correct what was going on, because that's the thing about having kids is that they think that, you're their hero. You are the Superman. You can never be wrong or do wrong. Right.
Yeah.
And even in situations where me and him have had an argument, right, and I'll send him to his room to cool out. I will go into my separate corner to cool out. And then when we get back together, I start out with saying how I screwed up in this situation, right? Showing that, even though I am the person in power in this relationship that we have, doesn't mean that I'm always right and I'm always going to make the right call. And I think at that point, man, you just have to be brutally honest so that it kind of sends not only a message, but it kind of gets tucked away as a core memory that no matter who they are, they can have flaws, even in a position of power.
I went kind of the same direction. Mine was a bit different. First off, I wanted to make sure they understood I was human and not, because we know we get this false sense that our parents know everything, they can do everything, they are somewhat of superheroes, and sometimes it's very well. Some parents try to keep that up, right? That appearance up. And it's still heartbreaking when you realize they're humans, but then it's freeing at some point when you realize they're humans. So I wanted my kids to see that. But I'm a storyteller, right? And all of my life, it felt like I was told, don't do something, but never had a good reason, never got to explain why, never got taught truly about consequences and how to think things out. So I wanted to teach that to my kids, but it got to where the stories, they just didn't want to listen. So I do what they thought was magic at this point. I start telling them if they're going through something or dealing with something and it triggers a failure that I had, I start telling them exactly what they went through. And they're like, what? How'd you know that? Then I can share the story. But then I can give a solution. And that's kind of my thing. Do you have a line? I like, you shared some story with me online, Phil, at some point. I think you were 13 and had Southern Comfort and threw it in the Doritos bag.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. Would you share that story?
Yeah, I would.
Me?
100%.
Okay.
When the time comes, right?
Sure. I mean, everything is relative, right?
Right. But like, I smoked cigarettes for many years of my life, right? And a couple years ago, Danny's mother was still smoking and trying to quit, and he was getting really upset about it, right? And like, oh, I can't believe she's doing this. She knows it's bad for her. And I sat him down. I was just like, dude, look, like, I smoked for many years. It's not as easy as just, waking up and stopping. It takes multiple attempts. It takes, some people can do it in a day. Some people, it takes 5 years, It's not that she wants to keep doing this, but there's a physical element to it, right? Where brain chemistry is got this, hold on that cigarette, man. So like, don't be angry or frustrated with your mother because she's trying, right? She's trying to do it, and you just got to give her time with it and realize, like, yeah, I smoked too, right? So when that comes, I mean, there's going to be a point of time, especially in his life, where there's going to be conversations about everything, right? Garden gummies or drinking or portobellas, they're all going to come into play at some point. And I think that's the way to deal with stuff like that or any subject. It's not about demonization, right? It's about education, right?
Yeah.
Because the more you demonize something, it's kind of like giving them more of a like, well, how are you going to tell me I can't do that? But I feel like if I educate him, like, hey, look, yeah, if you are going to, let's say in the teenage years, go out and have beers with your friends, call me. I would rather you call me than try to come home and have something happen. Right? I'm not going to beat your butt because you're underage and drinking, but I would rather know that you're getting home safe, and then we can talk about that the next morning.
But what it does do is when you do draw a hard line, I've only had to do this once or twice. I forget what the movie was. I think Zoe or Rylan wanted to watch something. They asked me about something. I was like, yeah, no, you're not ready. And they started to kind of get that little, what do you mean? And like, how often do I actually say a hard no? How often do I not try to tell you about something and educate you? And they're like, yeah, it's like, yeah, I'd never tell you no. So I'm telling you no on this one. And it lands so much better because you're not always demonizing or doing stuff. But Joe, I mean, you got 3.
Yep.
How does Kelsey handle it? So we know you just have the basement all the time.
Well, here's something that my youngest repeated that my wife said.
Hey, this is
you moron!
And so we've had discussions about how sometimes mom and dad say things that really ought not to be repeated. Not that that was necessarily bad, but for their age, it was a good opportunity to explain that we shouldn't have gotten angry at the driver ahead of us. We don't know what their situation is, and they weren't that slow on the uptake. We let our anger get ahead of us. And so we've had a lot of conversations in the car with our kids. Phil was talking about drinking. We actually had a discussion with our kids about DUIs the other day because I had mentioned to my wife about Justin Timberlake. And so we had a discussion. They were like, "What's a DUI?" And so we had a brief discussion about drinking and how some people drink, and we basically just talked about what drinking does to a person.
Yeah.
Not that I've ever drank before, but from a
he's a fentanyl man.
Well, yeah.
but
Joe comes to the after party. We just hand him things. He trusts us. Joe is not the good example. The bad example is don't trust us. Yeah, cute. Compared to Joe, everyone has a drinking problem.
But we talked about how it lowers your inhibitions and how you would do things that you would never do, and that it can make you stumble and make you slur and make you think slow. And we talked about how driving under those influences, driving with that impact, how it's dangerous. And so
but that's not your failure necessarily.
No,
I mean, this is great advice, but I do want you to come back to
in general.
It's all about educating. That's what he's talking about, right?
And it doesn't when I mess up, I own up to it with my kids as much as I can. And yeah, my wife said, the 5-year-old said, "I'm never drinking alcohol ever again."
Yeah, but I've heard them say that before. Yeah, again. This isn't their first time saying this.
But I think learning from your failures is great, and it's a great lesson in teaching your kids humility and how to own up to their own responsibilities and their own failings. But also learning from the failures of others is a great boon to your kids as well, and teaching them to recognize that just because someone else is doing something doesn't mean it's the right thing, and oftentimes it's something you ought not to be doing because you see what happens.
And I heard what you did there. You said great boon, and this segment is brought to you by Boone's Farm. Boone's Farm wine in a box. Yeah, I don't know.
Every 5-year-old loves it.
Yeah. Well, the 6-year-olds will quit us again, but yeah.
But no, that's a good point, because if you're installing those at a very young age, it becomes helpful when they're adults, because there's nothing that I hate more than if somebody screws up and then doesn't take responsibility of that problem, right? Because whenever I do screw up at work, I just eat it, right? It's my fault. It's my fault. I caused this issue. And so installing that into a kid's mind really early, that when I see daddy messes up, he admits to it. Hopefully down the line, he'll be doing the same thing, where it's like, hey, look, I did mess up. I am human. How can I help rectify the problem that I caused?
I had to fight that battle very early on with Crosby. She was between the ages of 3 and 8. I don't remember exactly, but young enough to really know better. And for whatever reason, my wife and I, we always made sure to say sorry to each other, say sorry to the kids, taught them these things on the surface. Oakland took to it like that. For whatever reason, anytime Crosby was wrong, she wouldn't admit it. She wouldn't say she's sorry. She would hunker down, and that was it. And she's got my stubborn streak. I mean, she will outlast you. So I had to take away the thing that she wanted, which is my attention. And I told her, I don't remember what the deal was, but she was just not having it. She wasn't going to say she was sorry at all. It was a little thing, but she was just making it huge. So I said, all right, I'm not going to talk to you until you say you're sorry. You say you're sorry, then we'll talk again. She let it go 3 days, and I just wouldn't talk to her. Now, of course, part of that time I'm off at work and this and that. And and she tried to talk to me, and I would just look at her, and I'd wait for it, and she wouldn't say it, and I'd look away. So I acknowledged her, and my wife was like, "He's not kidding. We both agreed in this. You have to say you're sorry." And finally, she broke after the 3rd day. And then I gave her a big hug, and then we talked, and we did all. But I was like, "There's no way I can let you get past this moment. And you have my streak, but I'm the master of that streak. I will absolutely outlast you." And I did, and it worked. And she's much better. She's still not the best in the family at it, but she's a lot better than had I just said, "Well, we'll worry about it later." And I think that's a big red flag to put off as a parent. We'll worry about it later. That's the wrong idea.
Yeah. No, I don't let anything fester here, especially if there is an argument between me and the kid, right? Like I said before, we need that cool down period because when I get heated, sometimes I don't think right? And I'm not trying to double down because he's a child, man. I don't need to, punch down.
Except when you're playing Mario
no,
Kart.
well, no, I normally get down on a knee so I can just punch forward. But I mean, for Dano, it's a good thing he's in team sports, right?
Yeah.
And for me, I was in team sports, almost my whole life, and like, there's no better place to learn failure than playing baseball or hockey. I mean, you're not going to win every game. You're not going to get on every team, right? You might try out for a team thinking that, all your buddies are going to make it, and you just, don't try your hardest, right? You don't have that hustle, that go get it attitude, and you get cut. I mean, it happened to me. And so at a very young age, around 10 or 11, that exact thing happened to me where all my friends made a team and I didn't because I was not trying my hardest. And it kind of, at that point, instilled the mentality of, if you want it, you don't deserve it. You go out there and you work as hard as you can to get it. Because then, even if you don't get it, you can at least say, you know what? I left everything out there and I tried my best. So there's going to be a time where he doesn't make a hockey team. He doesn't make a baseball team. And we're going to have that conversation that, the other kids didn't beat you. You beat you by not trying your hardest and hustling out every play.
So, Joe, what you need to learn here is what you're failing at. Is you got to tell your 5-year-old, no, you try that alcohol again. You do not quit. You go get that alcohol. You're not a quitter.
Oh, man. Not like, and helping your kids learn through their own mistakes, I think, is very important as well. Yeah. Not rubbing like their mistakes in their face or anything like that. No, like for instance, last night, my 5-year-old, he wet the bed. I got up, I changed the sheets and whatnot, and he tried to tell me that he was just super sweaty. And I'm like, okay, son.
It's a weird place just to sweat from, bud.
I'm like, hey, son, everyone makes mistakes. It's okay to make mistakes. It is not okay to lie about it.
Hell yeah.
And so I'm like, if you keep lying about it, because this isn't the first time he's told us he's just sweaty. I'm like, if you keep lying about it, I'm gonna get a little frustrated. And yeah, so I explained to him that, everyone makes mistakes. You just have to own up to it and do what you can to make it better.
Yeah.